The city was dead. It had been dead for a long time. Buildings that once touched the sky now sat broken and leaning like old men too tired to stand. The streets were covered in gray dust and twisted metal. Nothing moved. Nothing made sound. Nothing lived here anymore. Except for one human. His name was Kale. Kale was a soldier. He wore dark tactical armor that was now cracked on the left shoulder. His boots were worn out at the front. His face had a cut above his right eyebrow that had healed badly. He looked like a man who had been through something terrible and had simply decided to keep breathing anyway. He sat on the cold ground inside a half-destroyed building. His large military backpack was open in front of him. He was putting things inside it, slowly, carefully, like a man who was not quite sure he wanted to finish the job. A worn gray blanket, a small data pad with a cracked screen, 3 energy ration bars, a photo of a young woman with brown hair. He looked at the photo for a moment, then placed it gently inside the bag. He had been in this city for 112 days. He had counted every single one. It started with a mission that went completely wrong. His squad had landed on this alien planet 3 hours before the bombs came. 6 soldiers went in, only Kale walked out. He did not like to think about that part, so he did not on day 3. When he was searching the ruins for food and water, he found her. She was hiding inside a collapsed wall, curled up like a small frightened animal. She was tiny, small enough to fit in his arms. Her skin was pale blue. Her hair was white as snow. Her ears came to soft red points on each side. Her eyes were too large for her small face, and they were the color of dark clouds before a storm. She looked at him like she was deciding whether to run or stay. She stayed. He did not know why he fed her. He told himself it was because leaving the child to starve was not something a person does. He told himself it was a one-time thing. He would find her shelter, find her someone, and move on. But there was no one to find. The whole city was empty. So he stayed one more day, then one more, then another. And slowly, without him ever making a real decision about it, weeks passed. Her name was Lyra. He learned that by pointing at things until she pointed at herself and made a sound. He repeated it back badly the first 5 times, and the 6th time when he finally said it correctly. She did something with her eyes that he slowly came to understand was the way her species showed approval. They built a small life inside the ruins. He found food. She found water sources he never would have noticed. He taught her words from his language. She taught him nothing about hers because she decided early on that his pronunciation was hopeless. It was a quiet life, a strange life, but it was a life. And then 3 days ago, his emergency beacon finally got an answer. A human rescue ship, coming in 48 hours. His long wait was over. He should have felt only relief. He mostly felt relief. He told himself he mostly felt relief. Now he sat packing his bag, and Lyra sat across from him on the dusty floor. She was not doing anything. She was just sitting, watching him with those large dark eyes, her small hands curled into fists in her lap. Kale did not look at her. He reached for the gray blanket. The same gray blanket Lyra had pulled over him every night when he fell asleep before he could do it himself. He folded it and put it in the bag. He heard a small sound. He looked up. Lyra's eyes were wet. 2 tears ran slowly down her blue cheeks. She saw him looking and immediately turned her face away. She sat up very straight. She cleared her small throat. Then in a flat, calm, completely serious voice she said, "I am not crying, human. My species just leaks sometimes. It is completely normal." Kale looked at her for a long moment. He looked back down at his bag. He said nothing, but his hands had stopped moving. Kale did not sleep that night. He lay on his back on the hard ground, staring at the cracked ceiling above him. His bag sat packed and ready near the door. It looked too ready. It looked like it was judging him. He closed his eyes, and that is when the memories started coming. Not the bad ones, not the ones about the mission or the bombs or his squad. No, these were different memories, small ones. The kind a person does not notice when they are happening because they seem too ordinary to matter. He remembered the coffee. On day 19, Kale had managed to find 3 old packets of instant coffee in the ruins of what used to be a shop. He had made himself a cup that morning. Black, 2 stirs, the way he always drank it. He remembered Lyra watching him from across the room with great suspicion, like the cup had personally offended her. 2 days later she made it for him, without being asked. Black, 2 stirs, exactly right. He had said thank you and drunk it, and thought nothing of it. Now, lying in the dark, he thought about it very hard. She had watched him make it once, just once, and she had remembered every detail. Not because she liked coffee. She had tried it exactly 1 time, and her face had done something dramatic and horrified that Cale still considered one of the funniest things he had ever seen. She hated the smell of it. He had noticed her moving to the far side of the room every morning when he made a cup, but she still made it for him every single day after that. He remembered the jokes. Around day 30, Cale had found his old personal datapad buried in his gear. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. He had let Lyra look through it one afternoon because she had been staring at it with enormous curiosity for 2 weeks, and he finally got tired of being stared at. She spent 4 hours with it. He assumed she was looking at the maps or the mission files. 3 days later, completely without warning, she looked up from her corner and said in her slow, careful human words, "Why did the human cross the road?" Cale had stared at her. "To get to the other side," she finished. Then she watched his face with intense focus, waiting. He laughed genuinely. It surprised even him because he had not laughed in a very long time. Something in her eyes did that approval thing. The next day she told him another one. The day after another. They were always perfectly memorized. Always delivered in that flat, serious voice that somehow made them funnier. He never once asked himself where she was finding them. Now he knew. She had gone through every single file on that data pad. Every old message. Every personal note. Searching specifically for things that would make him smile. He remembered the door. Every night without fail, Cale forgot to close the main entrance to their shelter. And every night Lyra would get up from her sleeping spot and close it herself. He had assumed she was cold and closing it for her own comfort. But her sleeping spot was on the far side of the room. The warm side, the door being open, did not affect her at all. She closed it because the cold air coming in kept waking him up. She had never said this. She had never explained it. She just did it, quietly. Every single night. Like it was simply what you did. Cale opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling again. He sat up slowly. He looked around the dark shelter, and that is when he saw it. On the wall directly above where he always slept. Drawn in careful alien symbols, lines and markers and small careful notes. A detailed map of the entire city. Every street, every safe path, every dangerous zone marked clearly. Weeks and weeks of careful work. It covered almost the entire wall. He had slept under it every night. He had never once looked up. He stood and walked to the wall and raised his light toward it. His hand moved slowly across the lines. Some of the routes went deep into very dangerous parts of the city. Parts even he had avoided. She had gone there alone. This tiny blue child had walked into the most broken and dangerous corners of a dead alien city. Alone, without telling him. Just to make sure that if he ever needed to run, he would know the safe way. His chest felt very tight. He heard a small sound behind him and turned. Lyra was awake. She was sitting up in her corner watching him look at the map. When he turned, she looked down immediately at her hands. "You were supposed to be sleeping," Cale said quietly. "My species does not require much sleep," she said to her hands. That was absolutely not true. He had watched her sleep 11 hours straight on at least 4 separate occasions. He looked back at the map. "Lyra," he said, "how long did this take you?" A long pause. "It is not important," she said. He turned and looked at her properly. She was still looking at her hands. Her small jaw was set tight. Her white hair fell across her face. She was doing that thing she always did when she was trying very hard to appear, as if she felt absolutely nothing. Cale had been a soldier for 9 years. He knew exactly what that looked like, because he did it too. Cale did not go back to sleep. He sat down on the ground near the map wall and just looked at it. All those careful lines, all those small alien symbols. She had walked through there alone. This child who barely came up to his elbow. He turned and looked at her. Lyra was still sitting in her corner, back straight, face perfectly calm. "Lyra," Cale said. She looked up. "Where is your family?" The question landed in the room like something heavy dropped from a great height. Lyra did not flinch. "They left during the first bombing," she said. "I am fine. My species does not require family bonds the way humans do. We are naturally independent from a very young age." Every single word was calm. Every single word was steady. Every single word was a lie. Cale had spent 9 years in the military. He had sat across from commanding officers who lied to his face about missions. He had interviewed prisoners who lied with complete confidence. He had watched his own squad members lie about being injured so they would not be pulled from duty. He knew what a lie sounded like. It sounded exactly like that. He did not push. Not yet. He looked back at the map and said quietly, "How do you know how to say goodnight in human language?" Silence. He turned and looked at her. For the first time all night, Lyra's perfectly calm face slipped. Just slightly. Just for 1/2 of 1 second. Her large dark eyes moved to the cracked datapad sitting near her sleeping spot, then back to him. She had not meant to do that. "I heard you say it," she said carefully. "I simply remembered it." "I never said goodnight out loud," Cale said. "I always just knocked twice on the wall before I slept. That was our signal." Another silence, longer this time. Cale stood up and walked slowly to her corner. He picked up the datapad and turned it on. He went to the audio files. He had completely forgotten these were even on here, old personal recordings. Messages he had made for himself during long missions when the silence got too heavy. He scrolled through them. Every single file had been opened, every one. Hours and hours of him talking to himself in the dark, telling stories about home, describing his sister, talking about small stupid memories from his childhood. Just a soldier talking into a device because sometimes a person needs to hear a voice, even if it is their own. She had listened to all of it. She had listened so many times that she had learned his language, not from lessons, but from the sound of him simply being human when he thought. No one was paying attention. Cale sat down slowly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the photograph, the one he had packed into his bag last night. He held it out toward Lyra. She looked at it for a long moment without taking it. Then very carefully she reached out and held it in both her small hands. She studied it the way she studied everything important, completely, seriously, like she was trying to memorize it. "She has your eyes," Lyra said quietly. "She will be very happy to see you." There was nothing in her voice, no sadness, no bitterness, nothing. She said it the way someone says a simple true fact about the weather. She handed the photograph back, and then one single tear ran down her left cheek. She wiped it so fast her hand was almost a blur. She straightened her back, she lifted her chin. She looked at a fixed point on the wall, somewhere above his left shoulder. "Ignore that," she said firmly. "Atmospheric pressure in this region affects my tear ducts. It is a documented medical condition among my species. It is completely involuntary and means absolutely nothing." Cale looked at her for a long time. "Lyra, it means nothing," she repeated. Her voice was perfectly steady. Her chin was perfectly level. Only her hands gave her away. They were pressed flat against her knees, pressing so hard her small knuckles had gone a lighter shade of blue. Cale opened his mouth to say something, and then his cum unit on the floor lit up. A new message from the rescue ship. He reached over and read it. His face went very still. The message said, "Only one human life sign detected at coordinates. Confirm pickup for 1 passenger. Arrival in 14 hours. Please confirm." The room was completely quiet. Cale read the message again. Then he looked up at Lyra. She was already looking at him. She had seen his face change. She could not read human text, but in 112 days, she had learned to read him perfectly. She knew something had shifted. She knew it was about her. She said nothing. She just looked at him with those large dark eyes that were leaking again. And this time she did not bother to wipe them away. The 14 hours felt like 14 seconds. Cale sat completely still with the cum unit in his hand. The screen light lit up his face in the dark. The message was still there, still saying the same thing, still waiting for his confirmation. 1 passenger, 1 human life sign. "Come home, Cale. Your war is over. Come home." He read it one more time, then he looked up at Lyra. She was standing now. She had stood up without him noticing. She was standing very straight and very still in the middle of the room. Her white hair hung around her small blue face. Her large dark eyes were wet, but she had decided somewhere in the last 30 seconds that she was completely done crying. Her chin was up, her small fists were at her sides. She looked like someone who had already made peace with something. That was the part that broke him. She was a child. She should not know how to look like that. No child should ever learn how to stand in a room and quietly accept being left behind, like it was simply the natural order of things, like it was just what happened to her kind. Cale pressed the response button on the comm. "This is Cale, Sergeant Unit 7, he said, his voice completely flat and professional. "I need to discuss the passenger situation." The reply came fast. A tired-sounding officer, clearly not in the mood for complications. "Sergeant, there is no passenger situation. Scanner shows one human life sign. That is you. We are coming for you. Confirm pickup." "There is a child here," Cale said. "Non-human, alone, no family, no shelter after I leave. I need her on that ship." A long pause. "Sergeant, alien passengers require Level 4 authorization. Interspecies transit permits, medical clearance, government approval from both sides. We do not have any of that. We cannot take her. Confirm your pickup." Cale said nothing. "Sergeant, confirm your pickup." The room was very quiet. Lyra had not moved. She was still standing in the middle of the room watching him with that expression that was somehow both completely calm and completely devastating at the same time. Cale looked at her. He thought about black coffee made with 2 stirs by someone who hated the smell of it. He thought about jokes memorized from a broken data pad just to make a tired soldier laugh. He thought about a door closed every single night by small, careful hands. He thought about a map drawn across an entire wall by a tiny child walking alone through dangerous dark streets. He thought about the word goodnight learned in secret from audio recordings. He thought about a photograph held in 2 small hands like something precious. "Scratch the pickup," Cale said into the comm. His voice did not shake even slightly. "Mark this signal as a false alarm." Cale out. He turned the comm off. He set it down on the ground. The silence in the room was enormous. Lyra made a sound, a very small sound, almost not a sound at all. She took 1 step toward him and then stopped herself. Her hands came up in front of her chest, pressing together tight. "You should not have done that," she whispered. "Cale, I am not worth." "Stop," he said. She stopped. He stood up. He walked to his packed bag sitting by the door. He looked at it for a moment. Then he reached down, unzipped it, and turned it completely upside down. Everything fell out onto the ground. The ration bars, the data pad, the blanket, the photograph, all of it. Lyra stared at the pile on the floor. "You said there is a free settlement," Cale said, turning back to her. "3 sectors east. People who do not check papers or ask questions." Her voice was barely a sound. "Yes, and you know the safe route. I mapped it." She whispered, 11 days ago. Of course she had. Of course she already had. Cale almost smiled. He picked up the gray blanket from the floor and shook the dust off it. He folded it and held it out to her. She looked at it, then looked at him, then very slowly took it and held it against her chest with both arms. "Then we leave at first light," he said. "You lead, I follow." For a long moment she did not move. Her species did not smile. He knew that by now. Their faces simply were not built that way. But something happened in her large dark eyes. Something shifted and opened and became warm in a way he had never quite seen before. It was better than a smile. It was something that did not have a human word for it. She walked to him. She reached up and took 2 of his fingers in her tiny fist, the way she always did in the dark when she was scared. Holding tight, not letting go. Only this time her grip was different. This time she was not holding on because she was frightened. She was holding on so that he would not be. They walked out of the shelter together into the pale gray light of early morning. The broken city stretched out around them, quiet and wide and full of paths that she already knew by heart. "I am still not crying. Human," she said quietly, looking straight ahead. "I know," said Cale, looking straight ahead too. "Good," she said. She held his fingers a little tighter, and they walked.